Jocko, is buds the right filter for the kind of people you want in the SEAL teams? Does it filter out good people and let in the bad?
So buds is the basic underwater demolition and SEAL training, and it does a decent job. And I'm not going to say that everybody that makes it through buds is a guy that you want to work with, or even a guy that you want on your team. Because one thing that happens in buds is that punishment is dealt out, right? I mean, it's just suffering. It's just hard work. It's, putting a boat on your head and being cold and wet and all this stuff. And you either embrace that and crush it. That's one way to get through. That's the way you should get through. But there are guys that they find a way to get by and to sneak by and to work the system, right? It does happen. And those guys definitely exist in the teams, and the real team guys know who those guys are. But the one thing that's hard, it's hard for a civilian to know the difference. Because to a civilian, a SEAL is a SEAL. If you have your trident, you're a SEAL, you must be a badass.
So what is it like, kind of like when your coach is saying, okay, everybody push-ups for, 60 seconds, and he's looking around, and when you see he's not looking at you, you just kind of cruise.
There's all kinds of guys. There's all kinds of little corners that you can cut. There's things you can get away with. And the weird thing about buds is, and I think Leif talked about this when he was on the podcast, is, or maybe he didn't, maybe we just had it in conversations, but you have a mentality when you're going through buds is that you're a team and you're trying to help everyone get through. And so you don't rat those guys out when you see them cutting corners. It very seldom do you rat one of those guys out unless it's just an atrocious case. Most of the time guys are, hey man, are you okay? An instructor's coming. They'll help people skate through. Yeah. Right? So it's pretty negative. When you get through buds and you're in the SEAL teams, then everyone says to a man will say, oh, I wish I wouldn't have helped anyone get through. Because now they're in the teams, and now we can't count on them.
Oh yeah.
And now we got to carry their weight. So it is definitely a test of making it through, but there's two ways to make it through. You can crush it and survive it, or you can sneak through it and skate through it, and it does happen. Now, it's also mainly a physical test, and people talk about, no, it's mental. It's physical, right? Yeah. There's a mental aspect to it, no doubt. And if you're not mentally committed to making it through, then it's going to be hard for you. But it's primarily a physical test. And physicality is actually a small part of being a SEAL. Now, of course, it's like a baseline factor. I mean, it is a factor. As a SEAL, you got to be able to do the job physically. But that's the baseline, right? And being a good athlete does definitely not automatically make someone a great SEAL, because there's guys that go through buds that are studs physically. And we get the SEAL teams, they're not good. They're not good SEALs. They might be a bad leader, they might be unsafe, or they can't shoot, or they can't handle the pressure, or they can't handle the grind. Because you get a guy that's an elite level athlete, and guess what? He's used to elite level of food. He's used to elite level of treatment. He's used to an elite level of rest. And you get to the SEAL teams, and there's no elite food. There's no elite treatment. There's no elite rest. There's just grind. And you're out in the desert, and you're just going on an operation after operation after operation. And some of these high-level athletes, they're such a fine-tuned machine. It's like we talked about before. They're like a Porsche or a race car, and what you want to be is a 4x4. Like you can put diesel or biofuel or whatever into that engine, it's going to keep running. You have to put the high-octane, clean stuff into the sports car, and some of those guys break down on that. And the reason is, like I said, is because the SEAL teams is not buds training. And I've said this before, no one in the SEAL teams cares about buds training. Once you've gotten through buds, it's like as normal as brushing your teeth. Like everyone's done it. No one says, hey, did you brush your teeth? No, we all brush our teeth. We all went through buds. It's not that big of a deal. One thing that buds does do good, though, is it does do a good job of finding people's weaknesses, and whether it's swimming or whether it's running or whether it's the obstacle course or whether it's lack of sleep or being in the water and the water work that they make you do, if you have a weakness of any of those areas, it's gonna show. Mm-hmm. It's gonna show. But again, some guys do find a way to make it through, and they end up in the teams, and they end up doing a couple of SEAL platoons. But again, being a SEAL doesn't make you a badass. That's just the truth. It doesn't make you a great leader. It doesn't make you a tactical expert. It just doesn't. It means that you made it through the training and you survived a couple SEAL platoons. That's what it means. Now, there are plenty of SEALs that are badass and great leaders and definitely some tactical experts, but it certainly isn't every SEAL, because there's a bell curve in the SEAL teams, a bell curve, just like any other group of people or any other organization. And at the top of the bell curve, you got a bunch of relentless, unstoppable warriors that carry more than their share of the weight in the teams. And these are the guys that have built or are building the reputation that the SEAL teams have. And then in the middle of the curve, that's where you got the bulk of the guys. And these are great guys. They're great SEALs. They do the job and they do it well. And they're outstanding professional combat troopers who get the job done. And they get the job done on time and on target. And those are awesome, solid guys that maintain the reputation of the SEAL teams. They maintain it. And then you got the crew at the bottom. And these are the guys that slip through the cracks, they work the system, and while they're technically classified as SEALs, these aren't guys that are like respected by other guys in the SEAL teams. And quite honestly, these are usually the guys that talk the most and brag the most about being a SEAL. And these are the guys that they don't build the reputation or maintain the reputation of the SEAL teams. These are the guys that live off the reputation of the SEAL teams. When, in all likelihood, they probably haven't contributed anything themselves to that reputation. Leeches. But that is what it is. And as I always say, the teams gave me everything. The good, the bad, and the ugly, and I wouldn't change a thing. I love the SEAL teams. The Frogman. The AW gunner in a SEAL platoon. The point man, the corpsman, the radio man, the rear security. The platoon chief. And the LPO. And the OIC and the AOIC, those guys in a SEAL platoon, the ones that carry the weight and carry the torch, those guys are in my blood. And I love those guys, and I always will.